well, the last couple of years have been frustrating for everyone, to say the least. For me, with travel having been my number one hobby for the last 20 years, it's been extremely frustrating with so many cancelled trip plans. But I'm finally about to head off on one. It's a simple New South Wales road trip, but don't think I've ever been so excited about such a simple trip to finally get out of house arrest, and just makes me more determined in the future to do a lot more travel and never take it for granted. It was about 6 months ago, with international travel stopped, I decided to buy this flash new car and enjoy travelling around the country, but with all the lockdowns since, in the 6 months I've done less than 5,000 kilometres, so it's well and truly time to hit the road, that's for sure. First stop is Goulburn, and this is the big merino. Of course, Australia is home to lots of cheesy big things, and I like to visit them just because they're a bit of fun. A couple of things I did not know though is that inside this big merino is actually a wool museum. You can walk through it, it's free to get in. And for those that can remember, back in 1966 the merino was put onto the $2 note. And of course they've been out of circulation for many years. Well, Goulburn has its own war memorial and museum, and it's very impressive, called the Rocky Hill War Memorial. Should get a terrific view of the city from up there too, surely. Something else that Goulburn has is a supermax prison, somewhere I'd never want to work, mainly because Goulburn is also one of the coldest places in New South Wales, so I imagine night shifts there would be pretty dismal. Well, that was very annoying. I climbed all the way up those stairs and got up to the top only to find it was all locked up. But anyway, the view looks a lot like this. Just something to be aware of on the way down. The roads were absolutely horrendous. All that rain has really cut them up, so you haven't got potholes, you've got all like craters, and on some of the major roads as well, so you just have to take it easy and just be very careful. Anyway, that is the view of Goulburn. Well, I'm in Canberra now, and I've come to the lookout at Mount Ainslie. I have been to this lookout before, but just working it out on the way up, it was on a school excursion 42 years ago, back in the 70s, so it's been a while. Anyway, the plan for today was to head to the War Memorial, which is just here. But I've just found out that it's closed for another couple of weeks, which is bloody annoying, to say the least. No reason why it should be closed. Anyway, looking up, there's Anzac Parade, I think it's called, and then the lake, which is Lake Burley Griffin, named after the architect of the city. There's an old Parliament House just there, so that is where the politicians were operating from when I was last here at this lookout. And further up is the new Parliament House, which I think was constructed in the 80s. Anyway, still run by idiots, so makes no difference. Anyway, looking across, there's the carillon, so a musical instrument that chimes every hour, I believe, and it's 50 metres high. It certainly doesn't look that from here, but that's what Wikipedia says. What else can I say about Canberra? I did live here for 6 months back in the 80s. Really different to anywhere else in New South Wales or Australia for that matter. Very nice place to live actually, but the winters here are absolutely brutal. -5, even down as low as -10 sometimes. Pretty awful. So this is Black Mountain Tower. It's where you get the best views of Canberra and the surrounding district. Thought I'd come here today instead because I don't have to mask up or sign in. It's just one more annoyance. So this is the National Museum of Australia, and I've just found out that it is open, so that's where I'll head instead. And even better news, it's absolutely free. I've never been there before, so let's go. Well, this is the first Holden prototype, built in 1948. 2.15 litres, 6-cylinder, which is incredible in such a small frame. Talk about a death trap. It's unbelievable to think that my first car was an E.H. Holden, which was built not that long afterwards, in 1964, and it used to go incredibly, and I had no seat belts, and I paid a massive $200 for it. Probably one of the best cars I've ever owned, actually. There's a Melbourne Cup display here, and just found out a couple of interesting things. The first Cup was run in 1861, won by Archer, who walked from Nowra to contest in the race. Since 1876, it was moved to the first Tuesday in November. And up until 1866, it was a cash-only race, and the trophy only got introduced in 1866, and there's the first one that was won by a horse called the Barb. And a year later, Tim Whiffler. So how's that for history? And over here is Farlap's Heart, and they did tests on it after it died, just to see how much bigger it was than most horses, and it weighed 6.35 kilograms. And the reason why it's missing a section is it got sent to the University of Sydney for examination of the muscle thickness and so forth. Well, no expense spared with this display. How unimpressive. Well, this museum's been here for 20 years, and first time I've ever been here. It's a pleasant place to come. As I said, free entry. Like most of these things, though, I get a bit annoyed about the interpretive, arty style of things. These red and white poles, for example, are meant to represent the way that Australia's been mapped out over the years. And the steel poles are meant to represent the dingo fence, go figure. There's a tunnel here, which I just went through, and there's absolutely nothing inside. And I've just been told by the staff that it's an interpretive space. Some people think it represents mining, and for some people it's just a reflective area. Oh boy. This is the Australian Federal Police College in Barton, and for a bit of nostalgia, it's almost 38 years since I turned up here for my recruit training. The bloke who I travelled down with from Sydney, he went on to become Assistant Commissioner. I stayed in the job for 4 years and then pursued other things, but gee, it was a long time ago. Here's a close-up view of the Carillon, and for some reason it's been silent today, so I'm not sure what the go is there, but probably blamed on COVID like everything else. Today I'm at the pretty seaside town of Bateman's Bay on the New South Wales south coast, and one of the fun things to do here, which I've done before, I'm doing it again, is this river cruise. Runs down the Clyde River to the little town of Neligan, and it's got a stop there, and it's a 3-hour trip, and includes a fish and chip lunch, and it's just $55, so to me that's great value for an outing. Well, how terrific is this? I did get to do a cruise this year after all, and I'm absolutely beautiful day this too. We'll come down to Neligan in a couple of years, and there'll be a new bridge. They're replacing the old one from concrete cancer. 2-year project. Here's a photo of the old bridge, the one they're knocking down. It was opened in 1964. I love these great old photos. This is the War Memorial when it was unveiled in 1921, exactly 100 years ago. I'll go and see if it's still there. And 100 years down the track, here we are at that very same War Memorial, and what a great piece of history. Well, the plan for today was to visit the Bega Cheese Heritage Centre, and turned up there to find that it's still closed. So obviously that company is run by morons. So plan B, and I've travelled another 40 minutes down the coast and arrived at the fishing village of Eden. Been here once before, a long time ago. Anyway, the weather forecast for the next few days is appalling for most of the south coast and inland as well. It's 4 days of torrential rain apparently. So plan for today now is to find somewhere for a really nice local oysters lunch, and I'll just go and visit the Tourist Information Centre, and I'm sure they can point me in the right direction. Well, I'm really pleased. I just managed to book a whale watching tour tomorrow morning. Our cruise. Hopefully the weather won't be too bad, but the whales, of course. This is a really nice beach just north of the town. The weather is not too bad at the moment. So with a forecast of the most rain in 10 years, this morning for the whale watching cruise, this is the conditions. Looks pretty good so far. So here's the boat. This late in the season there's no guarantees of seeing whales, but we'll see what happens. Well, there's a lovely secluded beach over there. Very nice sheltered spot. I've headed inland now, and it's another iconic statue, the dog on the tucker box at Gundagai. It was a tribute to the early pioneers, and opened by Prime Minister Lyons in 1932. In fact, it's not in the town at Gundagai, it's just the song famously says 5 miles from Gundagai, and it's got a bit of a wishing well type pool around it. Well, the last few days have been a total write-off with torrential rains and maximum temperatures of around 12 degrees, which is unbelievable for 2 weeks before summer. Today I've come to the Murrumbidgee River. You can see how swollen it is. This is not far from Wagga. Just a little stop on the way at a place called Aura Beach, and I'm told this is the place to come if you're interested in fishing for Murray cod, Not really my thing, although I don't mind eating them. So about 30 minutes out of Wagga on the road to Albury is a place called The Rock. I've got no idea how they named it, but must have taken a committee minutes to decide that one. Now there is a hiking trail all the way to the top, but I've just found out it's a 3-hour return hike, 6 kilometres, but there is a 30-minute option just to the lower level, so that's what I'm planning to do. Well, I made it to the first level, and it was incredibly steep and quite challenging, but good practice for what I got planned in a couple of days. This is the Murray River at Albury, which separates New South Wales from the People's Republic of Victoria. Head another 3 hours down the Hume Highway and you'll hit Melbourne, the most locked down city on earth. Now it's nice to have the freedom to be able to travel around again, but there's a lot of hassle still. These QR codes and the check-ins and all the mask mandates, and a lot of places still being closed. It's a real hassle, but hopefully next year that'll all go away and we can just get back to travelling around freely like before. A real pleasant surprise is the Botanic Gardens at Albury. They are magnificently maintained. Fantastic walking areas, lots of seating and shady grassed areas. You can tell just how much work goes into it, and a lot of councils could learn from their example about how to properly maintain a place like this. Well, this magnificent pine tree here is a Queensland Kauri pine, and it was planted here 111 years ago. Magnificent tree. Well, today I'm driving from Albury to Cooma, and the scenery along the way has been spectacular. We stopped off at the Paddy's River Falls near Tumbarumba, and what a beautiful place this is. Just driving past and spotted these wild brumbies. They're very skittish though. Oh, there we go, straight across the road. That's nice and safe. Oop, this one wants a piece of me. Big mane on him. I'm impressed. This is the Yarrangobilly Caves inside the Snowy Mountains National Park, and I'm about to go into Glory Cave, self-guided tour. Yeah, this is very spectacular. Self-guided cave tours are good. You do have to read about things yourself, but you don't have to wait for the old people to catch up. No, that is spectacular. Well, I had a fantastic plan today. That was to climb to the top of Mount Kosciuszko. I only found out recently that you can walk it all the way from the top of the chairlift here at Thredbo, and it's about a 6-hour return trip, but the weather has turned very bad. Very disappointing 2 weeks out from summer that it's Apparently feels like -4 and whiteout conditions, but all is not lost. There is a lookout about an hour up the track, so I'm going to try my luck and see how far I can get. Well, one thing that hasn't changed since I was last in Thredbo is what a massive rip-off it is. It costs $17 just to get into Thredbo, and then the 15-minute chairlift is $49. And from what I understand, food and drink prices are about 50% dearer than everywhere else, so that's something to be aware of if you do come up this way. Well, I made it further than what I thought. I'm at the lookout, so another 2 hours walk or so is Mount Kosciuszko up ahead. Can't see it with all the cloud cover, of course. Australia's highest point, I think it's 3,200 metres. But what a fantastic thing to do this would be on a sunny day. On the way back down to the village now, just a slight correction to the elevation. It's 2,200 metres above sea level, so not quite as high as I thought, but on a world scale it's not a big mountain. So now I just want to give everyone a travel tip, and for this video I want to talk about hotel bookings. For the last 20 years or so I've used a site called hotels.com. Fantastic selection of hotels at all price points and very easy to navigate website. A couple of things I really like about the site is that there's one central number, and if you have any problems you just give them a call, and always found the customer service to be very good. And another thing I like is they have a loyalty program, so after 10 nights you get a free night to the average value of the previous 10, which is very fair. So no reason to use anything else for hotel bookings than hotels.com. Just another comment I wanted to make about travel. Something that's always worked for me is how well it clears your mind. It really helps you to re-energise. I left home a couple of weeks ago with a multitude of issues and not really sure what my future plans were, but after re-energising on this trip, I'm absolutely crystal clear now as to what I plan to do, so it certainly works for me. Well, despite the bad weather, this has been a totally worthwhile exercise, and I'd recommend it to anyone with a half reasonable level of fitness. Definitely come to Thredbo and walk up to Mount Kosciuszko and go all the way if it's a nice day. Well, last stop of the trip is at the War Memorial. It's reopened finally, but there's still a lot of construction here, so it's a little bit limited, but better than nothing. Come to pay my respects. Here's one of the lifeboats off the Ascot, which landed in troops in Gallipoli, and you can see it's full of bullet holes. Well, it's a very sombre place to come, of course. No good ever comes from war, only tragedy, and over 100,000 Australians have died in wars, and just a terrible loss. And let's hope that cool heads prevail and we don't ever go down that path again for the rest of our lives. And we should never forget the sacrifice that these people made for our freedoms. My grandfather had two brothers who were killed in the First World War. They were privates, and this is one of them, Francis Commons. He was a solicitor from Parkes, and he was killed in France in 1917 40 years of age. Just 5 weeks later, his brother James Commons, another of my great uncles, was also killed in France. He was 42 years of age, a labourer from Orange. Great tragedy. Well, a few years ago I did a New Guinea cruise, and one of the stops was at Milne Bay. Very significant location because it was invaded by Japanese forces by sea back in 1942. There was 4,500 Australian troops there to greet them and push them back, and they were evacuated by sea 2 weeks later. It was the first land defeat of Japanese forces in the war. And just to close out this video, I must say the staff here were fantastic. They were incredibly willing and helpful, and they've informed me that they can organise a last post ceremony for family members of deceased soldiers, so I've asked them to go ahead and organise one for Francis and James. There's a long waiting list. It can take up to 3 years, but I'll keep family advised on that one. I think it's also a great opportunity for a family reunion in Canberra in a few years' time, so I'll let you know. Just driving home now, and stopped off at this war memorial in Barua. It's funny how things come back to you on reflection. I was thinking about the previous time I was at the war memorial. It was 20 years ago, and I was with Mum and Dad, and I remember Mum talking about Uncle Frank and Uncle Jim, and how it impacted the family. And they've both been gone now for over 10 years, and I'm sure they'd be thrilled to know that we're going to have this family get together for the last post ceremony, and I see it'll be a fitting tribute.